NewsX, and I'm Vaishali Kohli. Now, Union Minister for Petroleum and Natural Gas Hardeep Singh Puri has said that a cut in retail petrol and diesel prices would become a legitimate question if global crude oil prices remain stable at current levels for the next few weeks. However, he added that it is too early to speculate on any immediate price reduction. Arzu Seth, my colleague, is joining me with the latest on this. What can you tell us, Arzu?
Yes, during a press conference, during Minister for Petroleum and Natural Gas, Hardeep Singh Puri, in fact, provided crucial context regarding the financial state of national oil marketing companies, revealing that they have previously, absorbed the massive financial loss to insulate consumers from global market volatility, and also we noted that that a reduction in retail petrol and diesel prices would become a legitimate question if a global crude price, prices stabilize at their current levels for the next few weeks. So we mentioned that it was too early to speculate on an immediate price cut. Also, however, noting the recent softening in international energy markets, we added that if crude price remain at these levels for the next few weeks, cutting petrol and diesel prices will be legitimate question that everybody asks. But what the situation will be then, it is not right for me to speculate. Yes.
All right, thanks for joining me, Arzu. And my colleague Yash Ahuja is joining me live now, viewers, from the newsroom, and he will take you through the live oil price tracker. Over to you, Yash.
Yes, Vaishali, this is the current price of Brent crude last day financial. It is currently trading at $72.73 per barrel, which is up by 0.37 cents per barrel. Remember, the previous close was at 72.36. It opened on 72.70, and it's currently trading at a volume of 597. This is what we love to see. This is the price that is pre-war levels. Remember, during the war, oil prices, especially the Brent crude, crossed over $100, and this was the pre-war level. It was trading at 72, 73, 74 dollars per barrel, and now it is currently it is very stable at 72 to 73 dollars per barrel. If we take a look at last 5 days, we've seen a very tumultuous time for Brent crude, especially because of all the back and forth between Iran and US. It reached at a lowest point of $71.10 per barrel since the war started yesterday on 2nd July, and it has now again started to rising, but it's not something that we should be concerned about, because these prices are at pre-war levels. If you take a look at 6-month graph, in January the prices were at $66-67 per barrel, and they immediately shot up during when the war began, nearly in 25th Feb around. They crossed that danger $80 per barrel mark, and they continued to climb, reaching at a peak of $118 per barrel on the 29th of April. Remember, 29th of April was the day where US attacked Iranian energy sites, and Iran in retaliation attacked the Ras Laffan oil refinery, and the global oil trade was stopped. The global oil supply was reduced by a lot, by a huge margin. That is why these prices were increased to $118 to $109, $110 per barrel. But the good news is we are now back at pre-war levels, not the levels we would love. That pre-war was $66, $67 per barrel, but currently it is trading at $72, $73 per barrel, which is a good news. Back to you.
So that, viewers, of course, are the specifics, but to give us a more comprehensive understanding of the same, I have senior economist Dr. Sharad Kohli joining me. Dr. Kohli, just a little audio check there. Am I audible to you?
Yes, you're audible, Vaishali. Good morning.
Morning, Dr. Kohli. Now, the petroleum minister has said that a cut in petrol and diesel prices has become a legitimate question if crude prices remain stable for a few weeks. Now, from an economic standpoint, is that a reasonable benchmark?
Well, I think a call should be taken on fuel prices right now. I do feel because they are hovering at about $72, $73. And there is certain margin which oil marketing companies are now earning on petrol. Diesel may be slightly negative. And more important, Vaishali, is not the crude oil price. It is the crude oil basket. And that basket is now well below $70. So I think it is high time because, people have been reeling under inflation is what I feel. The consumer price index prices of all commodities. I mean, I'm sure you run a household as well, Vaishali. You must have been witnessing how, food, fruits, vegetables, groceries, consumables, white goods, everything has gone up, particularly because of diesel being hiked by 7.5 rupees. That has got a cascading effect on all prices because the transporters, they pass on this increase to the consumers. So ultimately, the consumer pays for this. So people get hit in a double whammy. One, of course, is every time you go to the petrol station, you pay higher prices. And then, of course, there's a cascading effect on every other commodity. So I feel that the way Nayara has done, a private oil distributor having 7,000 petrol stations, and these oil marketing companies have 100,000 petrol stations. 90% of the market of oil distribution is controlled by these oil marketing companies, Hindustan Petroleum, Bharat Petroleum, and Indian Oil. So I feel some kind of symbolic relief could have been given. But what I fail to understand here, Vaishali, is I do respect what the petroleum minister is saying, that we'll see for 2-3 months if they stay low, we will give relief. But what I fail to understand that even if they are reduced as of now, and for any reason, for example, Russia-Ukraine war has flared up again in a bigger way, but they can always be increased again. What's the big deal? Because we used to have a system of dynamic pricing, Vaishali, some time ago, when prices used to change every day. If you remember, 15 paisa, 10 paisa, a few years ago, that used to be the system. So we can always go back. At least for now, I think people should be given some kind of relief because inflation is going to get out of control, and people are going to find an excuse to hike the prices. The manufacturers, the wholesalers, distributors, they find a good reason, even if they don't need to, they hike the prices that, because the petroleum prices are high. So I feel a temporary relief should have come. And in case, God forbid, if there was another flare up in the crude oil prices, we could always take it back to a higher level. That's what I feel, Vaishali.
It's interesting, Dr. Kohli, you mentioned that because personally speaking, of course, everybody clearly is bearing the brunt. Yesterday, I got fuel put in my car, petrol to be specific, and I wasn't really happy about what came out eventually when it comes to the figure. But I also want to ask you that how important is exchange rate movement, particularly the rupee against the US dollar, in determining whether fuel prices can be cut?
I mean, rupee has, yesterday it came under pressure because it was again above 95. Well, rupee dollar, factor is there. There's no doubt about it because every 1 rupee, or shall I say every $1 hike in the crude prices, it affects about 20,000 crore rupees. So the pressure on rupee comes. But that pressure, has been there, Vaishali, ever since the war started. What I'm trying to convey here is that, some kind of symbolic relief should have come because people are watching the crude oil prices. In fact, a lot of people never knew how these crude oil prices are and what does $70, $72 or $90 mean. But ever since the war started, people have become more aware. So they are watching now, even the people from the village, they are watching the crude oil prices. So I felt a more transparent system of petroleum pricing should be there, where range could be fixed that if $70 to $75, this is how petrol diesel would be. $80 to $85, this is what petrol prices would be. $65 to $70, this is how. I think a more transparent and a more see-through system has to be there, so government doesn't, get these strictures from people, because a lot of people, especially if you see social media, they are talking about this, that how come Nayara could reduce the prices, because Nayara is also buying the crude at the same price. So how could they afford to reduce? They could afford to reduce, and I understand they're trying to recover some of the losses they suffered earlier. But then, a symbolic, let's say a 2 rupee or a 3 rupee reduction would have gone a long way in clarifying that the intent of oil marketing companies is what I feel, Vishali.
Always a pleasure speaking to you, Dr. Kohli. Thank you so much for joining me. Now, severe waterlogging viewers